Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation, right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here. I'm your host. And we're going to be talking about a lot of different stuff on the show today. So, should be a very, very interesting show, actually. I'm going to start out with a poll, which shows exactly how screwed we are when it comes to coronavirus. I know, right? And really, I'm going to get in depth of some of the arguments that we're trying to make here to get people to actually believe that this is a problem. So we're going to do that. We'll talk about that. Then we've got Donald Trump's cognitive test. He cannot shut up about it, and I'm going to tell you why. We also have a Trump voter that has some regrets. Mistakes were made. And now she's advocating for people to vote for Joe Biden. So we're gonna have her video. I'm gonna do a critique. I'm gonna talk about that. Give her credit where credit is due, but also a little bit of light criticism on that. And then finally, I'll tell you why she should not be canceled, why she should be welcomed. So this is interesting. So it's, again, very nuanced discussion we're going to have here on the show, but that's what we do. We try to do a little bit more nuance. And I'm trying this thing, it's really interesting, of trying to be a little bit more humanist, I should say. And so I'm going to try that. I'm going to see how it goes. Obviously, no, I'm a humanist. I've got a lot of empathy here. But I'm trying to express that a little bit more and try to follow in the example of Michael Brooks a little bit more as well. So, it's tough sometimes. Let me tell you, to try to fight more against institutions and a little bit less against people, as Michael tried to do. All right. Anyway, so we're going to talk about that. We've also got the Congress. We got Congress that's talking about cutting unemployment benefits. Yeah, I know. We're in the middle of a pandemic. And then, look, Donald Trump and William Barr are trying to basically send jackbooted thugs into cities. Yeah, so that's what's going on. Great. All right, anyway. Jair Bolsonaro has COVID for the third time. Jesus. You'd think they would learn. Like, lucky enough to survive, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Wow. Yes, screw Ted Yoho. I'm with you, Ravaging Wolverine. I would have actually done that statement, done that story, and aired AOC's words, but we've got a lot of other stuff to go through, and so we're going to talk about all that stuff. All right. I suppose we had to start out with the top story of the day here. We've got that disastrous new poll out about COVID-19. Okay. As COVID-19 and hospitalizations surge across the U.S., there's still a growing number of people have begun buying into conspiracy theories about the virus. You've probably seen this on social media, on Facebook, people reposting memes that are grossly incorrect about the virus. And that is, of course, part of this effort, concerted effort by conservative media to disseminate false information. So now, according to an Axios Ipsos poll, it's been fairly effective. This poll was released on Tuesday, and it found that a full third of Americans believe that the death toll from the coronavirus has been artificially inflated. As in, they're basically making up the numbers to make the virus appear more deadly than it actually is. Again, that's the conspiracy, right? Now, that number has increased by a lot since early May. It's up from 23%, and that's disastrous. So now you have nearly a full third of the country that thinks that this, coronavirus, they're just hyping it up. They're making it seem worse than it is. And so it's actually not that bad. So we don't need to wear masks. We don't need to socially, physically distance. We don't need to do any of that. Oh, great. Lovely. Look, in this pandemic, just like any other pandemic, right? We got to have everybody on the same page to beat this thing. And so to have so many people believing that it's not as deadly as it actually is, I mean, that's disastrous. Right now, we actually have about 3 to 4% mortality rate. 3 to 4% of people who contract COVID die. Now, let's put that into perspective, right? Because when you say 3 to 4%, you might think, oh, okay, like that's not a big number. That's actually a lot bigger than the flu, which they love to make a comparison of, right? That's huge. And to put it into perspective of how many people that is, remember, the population of the United States is around 320 million. Let's say 320 million even, right? 3%. If 3% of the population were gone, wiped out today, we would lose 9,600,000 people. 9 million people, almost 10 million people. Now, of course, obviously, not everybody's going to get it, right? Well, I don't know about that. I've seen conservatives arguing that the best thing to do is to make sure that everyone gets it so that we can reopen the economy, right? So if that happens, then roughly about 10 million people would die, but that's okay because at least now you can go to Applebee's without a mask. Awesome. Pro-life party, guys. It's pro-life, right? Okay. So now the infection rate, to go into the math, has been reported around somewhere near 4 million, right? Approaching 4 million people. So you go to 3% of that, and you've got 120,000 deaths. Now, so far in America, it's been reported that we have about 143,000 people that have died from the coronavirus. And so it's a little bit higher than 3%. You could explain that a couple of different ways. For one, maybe we undercounted the deaths, and actually it's a little bit higher than 3%. Or, the testing hasn't caught up to the death rate. So either or, that's still really bad. Those are bad numbers. And so the math is pretty simple. You can see that it adds up, the percentages of how many people have coronavirus and the percentage of people that have died from coronavirus. And so, there it is. The math does not lie. Okay. And yet, according to this poll, a significant number of Americans believe that this death toll has been inflated. And of course, they use anecdotes. I see this a lot. Oh man, a friend of a friend whose uncle's mother works at a hospital and said that they were cooking the numbers in order to get funding from the government. Look, in my line of work, anecdotal evidence, yes, it can be used to make, I think, an effective point, but also it's not real evidence. I mean, I bring up anecdotes every once in a while in order to tell a story, but every time there's the caveat. This is not representative of the majority of cases, right? A friend of a friend's cousin uncle is not a valid source of information. It is hearsay. You know what else is hearsay? Fox News and conservative media. In fact, according to the poll, the number of Americans who believe the death toll is inflated is highest among those who get their news from Fox News. This is no surprise, about 61%, and Republicans 59%, while only 9% of Democrats and 7% of those getting their news from CNN and MSNBC believe the same. I think that is still way too high. Just say. All right. And again, there's a reason that the Republicans, the people who watch Fox News, believe in this. Is because, look, Fox News is the political propaganda arm of the Republican Party. That's exactly what they were set up for. Roger Ailes, back when he was creating Fox News, says, you know what we need? We need a channel. We need a quote-unquote station or news station in order to support the Republican Party and the Republican agenda. So that's it, right? And in this case, we have a Republican president, Donald Trump, and we've got Republicans in Congress, right? And so their first priority is to make sure that we push a narrative that is pro-Trump to protect Donald Trump among the base, and also to protect Republican incumbents. Now, that said, right, they'll lie, they'll distort, they'll report fake news, stuff that's not real, but they'll also criticize Donald Trump or Republicans in office, right? And they'll do that in order to give you the appearance of balance, right? Fox News, we're balanced, right? We're just giving you the facts. And see, sometimes I let Chris Wallace rip Trump a new ass. I mean, and he does. Chris Wallace has been very critical of Donald Trump. But don't forget, this network is all about elevating Republicans. So, and let's also not forget that actual studies have shown that people watching Fox News are actually less informed than people who don't watch news at all. I mean, look, one of the studies I'm going to reference, because I'm citing my sources here, the Farley Dickinson University's Public Mind Survey. So basically what they did is they asked people about current events, right? What's going on in the world? And the whole point of that is to see if they actually know what's going on. They also ask, well, where do you get your news? Where do you consume your news? And they found out that people who consume less news are actually better informed than people who watch Fox News. I mean, that's and really that's evidence of people basically being misinformed, exposed to disinformation from Fox News. It's not making you smarter. It's literally making people dumber. And now more disturbing about that is since then, because that was taken back in 2012, right? Now, in the intervening years, you've had a conservative takeover of your local media stations. Again, we've talked about Sinclair Media on this show before, and what they've been doing to basically buy out local media outlets in order to use them to push propaganda on your local communities. That's it. Part of that propaganda, again, is the idea that the official coronavirus death toll has been inflated in order to hurt Donald Trump politically at the polls, right? And so when you really deconstruct that idea, the fact the idea that the entire world, which has also been dealing with this, and actually has been dealing with this a lot better than we have because they have used masks and they have done social distancing. And some have locked down their economies. Others have not, but have adhered to these standards and have, of course, universal health care. They've done a lot better with the virus than we have. I mean, we rank number one, and that's not a good thing. That's very bad, right? And so to think that the entire world, all the doctors, the government, right, the CDC, all these government agencies, the media, the tens of thousands of people who are dead, they have all conspired to make sure that Donald Trump loses in 2020. That is insane. That's what crazy people think. It is deep, deep paranoia. And that, of course, is a trait of people who share conspiracy theories. Another trait is, well, they want to feel special, right? They want to think that they are special. They're only ones privy to this information. And the only people that, thank God I'm not a sheep because I think differently than other people because, other people believe in facts and I don't. Not only that, but right, a lot of this is by design. Okay. Decades ago, conservatives wanted to undermine public trust in government and media and institutions and academia. And of course, it's to weaken them so that they can better sell off the government to private industries, privatize public works, and basically lie to people and make it easier for them to basically rob us. I mean, look, all you got to do is follow the money, right? And they want to take all that money and funnel it to themselves, put it in their own pocket, and to their donors, and that's how they continue to have a hold on power. And then it helps them to, of course, be able to mislead people when people aren't educated enough to be able to do critical thinking, and not able to look up facts. Anti-intellectualism, by the way, is a staple of American conservatism. And by the way, I think it's a staple of conservatism basically everywhere. Because everywhere, intellectuals continue to prove that conservative policies don't really work and often only lead to a concentration of wealth and power towards a small group of people. So I guess you could say they actually do work because that's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of conservative policies, is to get wealth and power towards a small group of people. So, and that's what we see today, by the way. I mean, America has the highest amount of income inequality among the G7 nations. And this is according to the Gini coefficient, which tracks inequality. We have been steadily rising, and now we are the top country within 7 industrial modernized countries with, powerful modern economies. We're the most unequal. And all these institutions, academia, media, for the most part, all they're doing is really reporting factual information. Conservatives tend to find that information very inconvenient, and that's why Republican administrations always try to shut them down. Or, in the case of government agencies, defund them to the point of near uselessness. So then they can break it apart, privatize it, and give it to a corporation, or just shut it down completely so they can do political correctness. And that's what you see a whole time, during this entire this pandemic, is conservatives doing political correctness. Now, look, I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody that there's a lot of distrust in institutions in the public, a lot of distrust in institutions on the left as well as the right. Okay. And some of it is definitely understandable. But understand where that leads to. Politicians will defund it. Again, we're talking about the right wing here. Conservatives will defund it. That ends up leading to those systems not working, right? Which leads to more distrust in the systems, which leads to more defunding, which is a pretty vicious cycle. Okay. And so that's a problem. Now, interestingly enough, I mentioned all this distrust in institutions, right? Well, this poll also reflects a loss of faith in the government as a result of COVID-19. And that, of course, is understandable. Trust in the CDC, for example, Both dropped by 15%, as well as state governments by 50% from April to 70 to 57%, respectively. Now, a lot of states, of course, have reopened too early. And so that has led to a lot of distrust. As far as in the CDC, for example, I think that has to go with some conflicting information coming out about the virus. Now, the thing about that is, well, there's a lot that we don't know about the virus. It's a new virus. It's a new strain of CoV SARS. Was it CoV-2 or CoV SARS-2? Can't remember quite what the designation is other than, SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. And so there's a lot that we don't know. And when science plays out, because it is a process, sometimes there's conflicting information, not only about what it does, but also how to effectively combat it. Okay. So there's that. I'll get to that point a little bit later in this segment. But first, only 35% of Americans trust the federal government when it comes to COVID-19, and about 31% trust the White House. Notice how the same amount of people who, by the way, who believe that the death counts are inflated are the ones that trust the White House. It's the same percentage, 31%. But for everyone else, did you know that a similarly large number of people also believe the death tolls have been undercounted? That's about 34% of Americans. Unlike the overinflated conspiracy theory pushed by conservative media, is actually backed up by studies. For example, there's a study published July 1st by Virginia Commonwealth University and Yale University researchers in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And the reason for that, of course, is because in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what was killing people. I mean, later on, as we began to learn more about the virus, people went back and, people that have died from what we now know as COVID symptoms, right? Or complications, resulting from contracting COVID-19, those deaths were reclassified, which leads to, of course, to conspiracy theories. The right wing jumps on that and says, see, they're going back and they're changing things. They're fudging the numbers. But no, that's how science works, right? And understand that science is a messy process. And to see it unfold in real time, I can understand why some people would lose their faith and cast out. But again, they don't understand that science is this process where there's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of data. Sometimes that data conflicts, and it has to be tested, measured, retested, observed through a significant period of time. And so far, we have not had this virus for a significant period of time. And by the way, theories that were valid or seemed valid end up getting disproven all the time. And that's why you have changes of misinformation. It is all part of the process. And that's why we've had a lot of confusion early on about wearing masks, for example. We didn't have as much information on the efficacy of using masks. And the federal government, of course, had botched their response. They did not manufacture more masks. The masks in the strategic stockpile were, in a lot of cases, moldy, unusable. And so the federal government, now presented with this respiratory virus, we're very worried about medical professionals running out of PPE just in case the hospitals get overloaded because they got to plan for the worst case emergency, right? And so downplaying the threat and then telling people, no, you don't need to wear masks. Well, that worked against them. I understand what they were trying to do, but again, that's part of the problem. They were not prepared for this when the Obama administration had left them notes saying, be prepared for some sort of respiratory virus. So make sure you update your stockpiles and all that stuff and do some preparation. The Trump administration didn't do that. The Trump administration fired a lot of the team working on pandemic response. And so that's part of why we were unprepared. And yes, part of why we were told, don't wear masks in the beginning. The other part, of course, is that we didn't really know how effective masks were. Once you had studies out there that showed how effective they were at slowing the transmission of the virus, as well as how easy it was to spread, and how social distancing, as well as wearing the masks, were the best way to take personal responsibility, Well, that's when the message changed. And so understand, though, that that does create some uncertainty, conflicting messages. People hear it at different times. It gets reported in different ways. And that, of course, creates distrust in our, in the government, as well as the CDC and the message from the media. And so I get that. I get that. And again, science, that's how it works. Conclusions change based on new information. It's an imperfect process, but rarely do its conclusions get proven wrong. And when they do, that's actually great. That means we learned something new, something was unexpected. We've actually deepened perhaps our understanding about certain subjects. And guess what? It creates more questions. And when you have more questions, you're able to do more studies, more experiments, and deepen your understanding. So, the last thing I want to touch on is this, right? According to the poll, the majority of respondents are casting blame on their fellow Americans for worsening the pandemic. 74% of Americans believe their fellow citizens are behaving in ways that are making the country's recovery from the pandemic somewhat or much worse. And in this case, 100%, 100% correct. If you're not wearing a mask in public, you are making it worse. It's simple as that. If you're going to COVID parties to purposely infect yourself or other people, then you're making it much, much worse. So understand, right? Again, there are differing levels, obviously, of making it worse. But either way, if you're not, social distancing and wearing a mask, you're generally not doing the right thing, especially if you want to reopen the economy, as all of us do. No, nobody wants to be locked down. I don't want to be locked down. I don't want the economy to go to crap. I don't. I look. I don't really care. I want a good economy, even if it's under Donald Trump. Great, except that we haven't had a good economy under Donald Trump. Although at least you could say it was better pre-COVID. Uh, that said, right, I don't feel good about this poll. I don't. There are good data points in it, sure, but the number of people buying into ridiculous conspiracies is just too high. And it really makes me concerned about this country because we're not going to be able to contain this if we don't all take the necessary actions to do so. 30% of the country thinks it's a hoax. I mean, this is terrible. That's going to mean longer death or more deaths, longer lockdowns, and even more economic pain. If you care about any of those things, which you should care about all of them, then you should do the right thing and actually be a good member of your community and just wear a mask, do your social distancing, and don't go out unless you have to until the rates of this virus start to become more manageable. Then we can start to go back out and hopefully eventually be able to beat this thing and not have to wear masks anymore. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We got more stuff here. First, I'm going to thank some patrons and read some super chats if we have any, and thank some channel members as well. So we'll do that, and we'll come back. We got some fun stories coming up, including some regrets from a Trump supporter, as well as the cognitive test that Trump keeps crowing about. That's always fun. So we'll do that right after this break. Stay right here, Around the Nation.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Mike Pounds.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. TWT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. All right, so first, a lot of super chats here. Okay, so let's read those. Adrian Benefield says, I don't remember if it was you or Robin, or a.k.a. John Adirola, who said it, but spirituality is belief in a higher purpose, not just a deity. Definitely not something that I said. But yeah, I mean, John's right. That's fair. Again, I'm not necessarily a spiritual person, but yeah, I mean, I do believe there's a purpose that you can make for yourself. Generally, like I think, for example, helping humanity and trying to do better, trying to build a better future for everyone else, something to leave after you're gone. I think that could be considered a form of spirituality. So it's good stuff. All right. Anyway, Martin Trammell says this quarantine is awesome, and I'm not going to say the rest. Dirty. All right. You guys are so wrong. All right. Anyway, I want to thank some patrons. Let's see. I want to thank WB Crozier. Thank you. And Tainimi for signing up to be a patron. It's patreon.com/TWTNation. And then I want to thank channel members Dan Powell, brand new member, and Tara Martin. So thank you for signing up to help independent progressive media. All right. That said, let's dive into the show. Now, President Trump continues to brag about his cognitive test results, and people can't stop laughing about it. During a Fox News interview, Trump admitted how difficult some of the parts of the test really were for him. And so let's watch that.
The first questions are very easy. The last questions are much more difficult. Like a memory question, it's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman, man, camera, TV. Okay, that's very good. If you get it in order, you get extra points. Okay, now he's asking you other questions, and then 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes later, they say, remember the first question? Not the first, but the 10th question? Give us that again. Can you do that again? And you go person, woman, man, camera, TV. If you get it in order, you get extra points. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy. And that's not an easy question. In other words, they ask it to you, they give you 5 names and you have to repeat them, and that's okay. If you repeat them out of order, it's okay, but it's not as good. But then when you go back about 20, 25 minutes later and they say, go back to that question, they don't tell you this, go back to that question and repeat them. Can you do it? And you go, person, woman, man, camera, TV. They say, that's amazing. How did you do that? I do it because I have like a good memory, because I'm cognitively there.
I have like a good memory. I'm cognitively there. Oh my God. Word salad. I love how I said, look, man, it was hard. Ooh, these last 5 questions were hard, but then they were pretty easy too. Most people it was hard, but for me it was actually pretty easy. What? No, what? Okay. Wow. Okay. Now, here's the fun part. As I keep saying over and over again, right? This isn't a test to see how smart you are. Okay? He's not a genius because he can pass a cognitive test. It's to see if you have cognitive problems, right? This is the test that they give to people who have strokes or some sort of accident, right? To make sure they don't have cognitive impairment. And so this is just a standard test to make sure that your brain works, that everything works upstairs, right? The way that it should. The idea that you get extra points for this, that he says, oh, what extra points? What do you get, like a gold star and some ice cream afterwards? That's what he makes it sound like. But look, I keep wondering why he goes back to this. Why does he go back to this? And then I realize it's really, really simple, right? That's his strategy to beat Joe Biden. He keeps saying, Biden, he needs to take the test. I don't think Joe Biden can pass the test. I just don't think that he can do that. No, he thinks that this is a genius move. He thinks that, got him, nailed it, Joe Biden can't pass that test. I can, because I'm cognitively there. Well, I'm pretty sure Joe Biden is cognitively there. Look, is Joe Biden not sharp? Yeah, he's not sharp. You know the thing, right? But is he cognitively there? I think so. I think that, I don't know if I really buy the stutter, thing. Yeah, yes, he's got a stutter, and I'm sure that causes issues, memory issues. When you're older, you tend to lose your memory, and you might not have a good memory to begin with, right? That doesn't mean you're cognitively impaired. This means, like, for example, my short-term memory is kind of shot, right? Sometimes I forget where my keys are. Am I cognitively impaired? Not necessarily. And I think with Joe Biden, it's a struggle to find words, and it's a struggle to use the right words. And that's kind of a thing that he's always had. And look, Joe Biden's had his own health problems as well. But I still am convinced that he could pass that test. If Donald Trump can pass the test, Joe Biden can pass the test. All right, that's it. He wants you to believe, Donald Trump does, that by passing this, he's a very stable genius, right? Suffice to say, not a good strategy. And of course, Joe Biden's not taking the bait, which is probably smart of him to do. That said, social media had some fun, right? One person said, person, woman, man, camera, TV. The Donald Trump story. Another person says, maybe he'll bring a psychiatrist onto the next COVID-19 briefing show. And that's what it is, right? I mean, he brought this back for a couple of reasons. For one, he's getting his ass kicked in the polls, right? And he's not going to do any more rallies. The Tulsa rally blew up in his face. It was disastrous. Why? Because people worried about COVID-19. And so he's not going to do more rallies. He's not going to risk that after the debacle that was Tulsa. And so after also some of the more recent rallies where he didn't do very well. And then, of course, the other reason is that, well, ratings. He's got to get the ratings. And with no Dr. Fauci, no, doctors, whatever, right? Birx is kind of like a mouthpiece for Donald Trump, which is super, super sad to see, and really kind of enables him. Fauci slightly, but less so than Birx, obviously. And of course, there are public disagreements between both of them, and Fauci's gone on the record for that. But there are no doctors. This is Donald Trump ranting in front of a camera. He loves that. And he says, get good ratings. And so that's the other reason that he's doing this. So I doubt he's going to bring a psychiatrist. But nonetheless, fun. Stuart Stevens says, good Lord, Trump can't remember the name of the test he took to test his memory. Ironic. Another person says, few observations from someone who sadly had to sit through these tests with my mom a lot over the past few years. Person, woman, and man are too similar. It was usually like book, apple, chair, etc., or something like that. But overall, yes. And that's how it works. So, wait, if she's right, Donald Trump not only didn't remember the name of the test, but he also didn't remember the things that he was asked to remember on the test. Uh-oh. That's not good. And then another person adds, If your grandfather talked like this, you take away his car keys and not let him near a stove. And finally, this one's fun. Extra points equals double ice cream? Well, hell, who could argue with that one? Double ice cream for all. Should run on that. Just ice cream for everybody. But what about the lactose intolerant, Jeff? There's got to be like ice cream that doesn't hurt people's stomach. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to think about that. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Now I'm just getting into ridiculous ice cream points. All right. A Trump voter is now feeling some regrets and publicly posts a video in why she no longer supports Donald Trump. And I'm going to show you part of that now.
The first questions are very easy. The last question.
That is the wrong video. Let's go to the right video.
I voted for Donald Trump in 2016, and I swear I will not make that mistake again. In fact, I owe everyone an apology. I owe the entire world an apology. I've never voted for a Democrat. I wasn't planning on it this time around. I decided in probably January, February, when I heard that the first case of coronavirus was in Venice, I said to everybody around me, if it's in Venice, it's in the United States. And the administration didn't take it seriously from the very beginning. They continued to come on TV and say, low risk to Americans, 15 cases going down to 0, all this BS that I knew at the time was BS. So I lacked any confidence and knew that it was going to be lie, deny, deflect, and now it's turned into full-blown delusions. But at that moment, I decided he no longer has my vote.
All right. So, look, this former Trump supporter, as I mentioned, is a Republican, okay? He's a Republican who's kind of mad about the coronavirus. Understandably so, because under Donald Trump, his leadership, or lack thereof, has led to the death of over 140,000 Americans. I mean, the man is not fit to lead. He's completely inept. He does not care about the American people. He doesn't care if this virus ravages the population, so long as he gets enough people to vote him back into office. And of course, the money continues to flow to him and his businesses. That's it. That's it. So now look, here's the thing. We're going to get a little nuanced, right? So it's kind of easy to pile onto this person for being terrible for voting for Donald Trump in 2016, right? And let me tell you why. I mean, he said very publicly in the beginning of this campaign, Mexicans are criminals and rapists. And that some, I believe, are good people, right? And they're pouring the drugs over the border, and they want to come and take your jobs and all that stuff, right? It's really difficult to look at somebody who voted for that and not think, really? What the fuck? What are you thinking? Why would you ever do that? And so, yeah, I understand the pylon. I get it. Blatantly, openly racist from the get-go. His entire signature policy was build a wall to keep the brown people out. Yup. So now that's it, right? It's okay to want immigration reform to cut down on undocumented immigration, right? And see, here's the thing. From the left perspective, right, I think we understand that corporations take advantage and exploit undocumented labor. We do. Our entire agricultural industry is based on exploitation. That's why we have cheap vegetables, right? And because, look, if we only had the government to subsidize vegetables like they do corn, because now corn's in basically everything and it's super cheap, that's because the government subsidizes the crap out of it, right? If the government subsidized other vegetables, well, you could still pay people a rather good wage, right, for picking those vegetables. Although you still have a problem with Americans not actually wanting to do that job, because I know they've tried. They've tried actually offering $15 an hour to pick the vegetables to Americans, and they got very, very few takers, people that quit, that couldn't handle that work. That undocumented immigrants do, and they do it for less. And so understand that entire system is built on the exploitation of people from Latin American countries. So that's again that's sort of a core of capitalism. So there's that, right? We need massive reform. We need a different system. We need to change this so that we don't have a system of agriculture or neither a system that is as exploitative as this or exploitative at all. So that's different than build a wall to keep out the brown people who are all criminals and rapists. If you believe that, well, that's racism, right? That is clear, a clear example of racism. However, right, while I point that out, I do, before you get too tough on this lady, right? Here's the other reason she decided not to support Donald Trump and what she's going to do about it. Take a look.
I didn't come around to voting for Biden until George Floyd. And it was the reaction, or I guess you could say non-reaction, to Americans screaming out for justice. And then, of course, gassing peaceful protesters. I mean, what country do we live in? This is insanity. That's when I decided that Biden had my vote, because we need to do whatever we can to get that monster out of the White House. And there's just been so much shit since May. I mean, there's example after example after example of why he has to go. I think back to 2016, and he ran on Drain the Swamp. He is the swamp. He's worse than the swamp. He is the scum at the bottom of the swamp. We cannot give this man another 4 years. He will destroy this country. A vote for anyone other than Biden is a vote for Trump, and you need to pick country over party. Please, for the love of all Americans, do the right thing. Do not vote for that monster.
All right, so look, that's her in her own words, right? She saw the injustice happening around to African Americans, the hands of the police, and to her that was a deciding factor. So now that gets me to why I think she had those previously disastrous positions, right? I think this person was grossly misinformed. I think that this is a person who originally didn't pay much attention to politics, probably grew up a Republican, and was like, I'll vote Republican because, whatever. She might not even have voted before 2016. I don't know. And so the big message, as you heard, that she really paid attention to is drain the swamp, anti-corruption. Well, look, when you're talking about anti-corruption, you get a massive majority of people that like that message. Why? Because we don't like the fact that our government is corrupt. And it is corrupt. It's corrupt under both Republicans and Democratic administrations. And so I get that, right? And so I don't think that to be charitable, I think that she probably saw the obvious blatant racism from the Trump campaign and ignored it and placed the anti-corruption message over that. And again, being super charitable, right? I'm not going to let that one go. There's no way, even if you're minimally informed, right? There's no way that you can't hear Mexicans are criminals and rapists and some are good people and think, no, he's fine. I'll vote for this guy. Completely not racist. No. But here's the thing. I'm willing to let it go. I'm going to let it go. So I'm not going to trash her, right? I'm not going to cancel her. And I'm going to urge you guys not to cancel her too. Why? I think because it seems like she's shown the willingness to open her eyes and to be like, well, boy, did I make a mistake. Boy, did that suck. Maybe I should fix that. And I mean, again, I think this was due to actually getting the real information, not only seeing it from her, with her own eyes, what's going on with coronavirus, but look, the lockdowns have given people the time to actually begin to look into politics. And to look into what's going on beyond just the headlines, which understandably are incredibly sensationalist, especially surrounding the George Floyd protests. But you can't go and look at people, for example, moms getting gassed in Portland over the George Floyd protests and think, oh no, this is what a functional democracy looks like. No, but understand this has been like this for a very, very long time. Okay, that's what it's been like in America for years. Even under President Obama, there were water cannons out at, against Native Americans out in Standing Rock. So that's the stuff that our country's been actually doing for a long time. But a lot of people don't see it because they don't have the time to be able to see it. And so, look, I don't want to have this woman canceled because at a point in 2016, she was on the wrong side. Okay. Let's actually, I don't know, help people that want to be on the right side by actually giving them the tools and the information to be able to make those better decisions. And look, it's easier for me to say, like, how can you miss all that stuff, right? All the corruption that Donald Trump's done. But it's easier for me to say because I cover politics as my career, right? Maybe I'm being a little unfair. Maybe not. I don't know. But I just think we should help provide accurate information to people who are open to change. Help them see what's going on. I think it's so much better for us as a movement on the left to welcome people into our camp. We shouldn't be shutting people down, right? We should be trying to do our best to reach out and to say, actually, no, let's not do, let's not cancel, right? Let's not, and understand, like, there are people definitely that should be canceled. So I get it, right? People who continue to support, even knowing what actually is going on, to continue to support those policies. Yeah, you can cancel those people, right? But I'm saying we need to be not so quick to do that. We actually need to start being more open on the left and stop doing this circular firing squad and stop, trying to, I should say, stop ignoring people's humanity, right? We need to welcome people on the left. We need to welcome people to the left, because that's the way that not only are we going to, get more people to our side, but it's actually how we can get actual policy victories by having more people on our side voting for more leftist politicians, and also getting out in the street, because that's a really, really important component to being able to set up a winning coalition. And so I'm happy that she came out and said what she said. I agree with her 100% on a lot of that stuff. I'm really happy that she's having her eyes opened and is starting to realize and has realized what's really going on. And so I think I wish her well on her journey away from, of course, the party of Donald Trump. And hopefully, I hope that she ends up in a better place, right? And where we believe in facts and where we believe in treating people with both humanity and justice. That's all. Okay. With Congress back in session, Republicans and Democrats are coming together to debate a final stimulus package. So now that package may include the possibility of another round of direct payments to Americans and some more aid for the states. And stuff that's also on the table are things like increasing testing, funding for testing and tracing and things like that. Another hot button issue is the fact that the $600 additional federal employment benefit will run out at the end of the month. In fact, some of the last payments will go out this week. So that's going to put a lot of struggling Americans into financial jeopardy. Democrats are asking Senate Republicans to extend the $600 benefit, but they're being met with a counterproposal that kind of sucks. So now Common Dreams is reporting, based on another report from CNBC, that Republicans are considering a proposal to cut the $600 a week benefit to $100. Oh, great. Now, the Republican proposal would pay out the $100 per week boost through the end of the year. So what you're going to get is a $400 benefit per month, which is a $2,000 benefit cut. So that is a lot of money. That is a lot of money that has been cut out. So, look, I think that's irresponsible at a time where people are struggling to pay rent. Over 40 million people have lost their jobs, their healthcare, their financial security. And so I think that's really bad for the economy because people are not going to have the money to be able to meet their financial obligations. Because understand, $2,400 in addition to the weekly benefit, depending on the states, could be $200, $300. It's still not all that much. It's not enough. For example, you have 40% of Americans, pre-pandemic, right, that couldn't afford a $400 emergency. You had 60% of Americans that couldn't afford a $1,000 emergency. There's just no savings. And nowhere in America could somebody working full-time, making minimum wage, actually be able to afford rent. Housing prices are out of control. Jimmy McMillan, the rent is too damn high. And so there is that issue. You remove that support without those jobs being back. And I know the Republican position, Lindsey Graham, I believe, said this, said, well, I want to help people, but I think we shouldn't be paying more people, people more to stay home than they would working at their job. Well, there's a way around that. Make sure people who are working full-time get paid more. Make a living wage. And the reason that we call it a living wage is that it's basically the amount that you need to be able to survive without government assistance. Isn't that a goal that we should all aspire to have people who work full-time be able to live without government help? I mean, that's what I want. I want to make sure that people who work full-time get paid fairly, get paid enough to survive. But again, people don't quite understand that. And especially at a time, of course, where you have 40 million people out of work and a lot of jobs that haven't come back, a lot of industries that have been destroyed due to the pandemic and the lockdown efforts that are not going to come back after this. Cutting that $600 benefit per week is just an absolute disaster for everyone involved. Not good at all. Not good. And so, of course, this has led to a lot of criticism from Democrats. Representative Don Beyer from Virginia said that the $100 per week proposal shows that Senate Republicans are just wildly out of touch with reality. Here's his quote, and I love this because it's actually kind of strong. Seriously, just $400 a month? Cutting monthly income for 30 million families by $2,000 would cost the country millions of jobs. This wouldn't just be horrible governance, it would show contempt for the American people. 100%. They're telling you, I don't care if you can't afford the bills. That's your problem, not my problem. Here, take this $100 and just fuck off. Economic Policy Institute Research Director Josh Bivens actually threw some facts out about jobs. Because again, if you do care about jobs, when you want to make sure to put money in the pockets of regular people to spend it to continue keeping those jobs, right? So now he said that reducing that unemployment benefit from 600 to 100 during this pandemic would cost the U.S. more than 4 million jobs over the next year. He said it is both cruel and stupid. But it gets worse. We're also facing a housing crisis. Now, it's explained by Common Dreams that expiration of the supercharged unemployment benefits is also set to coincide with the end of the eviction moratorium, shielding more than 12 million people who live in homes with federally backed mortgages. So, again, that's a big disaster. it looks like if we don't do something, we're going to have some economic devastation. And yet, at the same time, Republicans say, cut benefits. Great. So now here's where I go over to the Democrats, because Democrats also on this issue kind of suck. Politico reported late on Wednesday that many rank and file Democrats said that they are open to compromise on the extra $600 per week, saying that they would be open to less money as long as there is no lapse in benefits. Well, there you go. That's how Democrats lose. You want to be the party that abandons the American people during the time of crisis and says, don't worry, we're going to let the Republicans cut your benefits. But at least you'll get them on time. Okay, but you get a little bit of money on time and you still can't afford your bills. Well, what good have you done? Not a lot. No, here's what Democrats should do. Demand a $2,000 a month UBI and a rent freeze. And if they refuse, threaten to take it to the American people and say, hey, these are the guys that don't want you to have any money. Look, UBI is pretty popular with the public, right? And so it would be the smart thing to do to publicize the crap out of it, that's your policy. That's what you want to do. I know there are some in the Democratic Party that are saying, absolutely, look, you've got Ro Khanna teaming up with Tim Ryan, who's generally a moderate Democrat, saying, no, let's do $2,000 a month. Let's do a UBI. Why are we not doing a UBI? Come on. And so this is not something that should be that shouldn't be embraced by the rest of the Democratic Party. But no, instead they've said one $1,200 benefit, direct payment, and then, well, we're just gonna compromise with Republicans and not do the $600 extension. What are you doing, guys? Do you want to lose? Apparently they do. But now, here's the other thing, right? So it is very possible that the Republicans have played this pretty well politically, from a political standpoint. Because what they've done is that they've delayed until, oh, look, we're basically at the point of crisis. Now everybody's running around with like a chicken with their head cut off. And so they did this, of course, by taking how many vacations? So far, I think two, maybe three, since the last coronavirus relief bill was passed. It was the HEROES Act, right? So, wait, that's a lot of vacation time. I would love to get vacation time like that. I can't even take a straight week off, right, for vacation. And these guys are taking what, like 2-month vacations. Ridiculous. And then, of course, they come back at the very last minute in order to force the Democrats, of course, to make concessions so that at least people get something. That's what it is. And the Democrats fall for it every single time. And they're okay with these vacations. In fact, they want to take these vacations too, because a lot of it is so that they can go and beg big donors for cash. And that's where a lot of these vacations are. But it's a disaster. But going back to the Republicans, right? They know what they're doing. Mitch McConnell, for example, laughed. He laughed literally at the possibility that nothing could get passed by the end of the week. Just laughed. Doesn't care. Doesn't care at all. Doesn't give a damn about you. If you don't get your unemployment back, doesn't affect him. Why? His donors already got the money. They already got it. They got their bailouts for the donors. They got money to put in their own pockets. That's it. They don't care. They have no idea about the suffering that they're going to cause, and they don't really give a shit about it. None at all. It's extremely clear what their policy priorities are, and it is not helping the American people. And you can see it reflected in the policies and the rhetoric that they put forward. All right. Unfortunately, that's all I got time for, guys. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. I want to read a super chat here that I missed. Karen Sheets says, wanted to say hi to everybody and stay safe. And then remarks that, hey, my name's now a meme. Yes, the Karen meme. But thank you, Karen, for sending that super chat. Thank you to everybody who did the super chats. You guys are great. Thank you. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please subscribe if you like the show, if you like the channel. We got plenty of content that we put out on a daily basis. So all of that stuff helps us out. Patreon.com/DODNation and channel memberships. All right, guys. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. We'll see you later. Stay safe.
Mike Pounds. Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Please clap.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Tolerate. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.